welcome to another recording, another interview as part of our inaugural, and I'm saying that like there's going to be another one, who knows, Independent Thinking Children's Book Festival online in partnership with the Sue Atkins Book Club. And it's through the Sue Atkins Book Club that I've got to meet the most amazing, slightly bonkers, most amazing group of people writing books for children, books about children, books for parents, books about parents, books that are relevant for teachers, for all sorts of educators, with all sorts of topics that are covered. And each one's been slightly different. Everybody's come at it in a slightly different way, but the topics are so important. We're all at heart, what we want is the best for children. And that's what these books are aimed. That's what we're doing with these books. We're getting books that aim to do the best for children. I've been talking to authors all day and all week. Whenever I close my eyes, whenever I go to bed at night, all I can hear is authors in my head. So we're on the final one of the day, but it's a hugely important one. It's also a topic close to my heart. Anybody knows my story or any of the books that I've written, which is why I'm really pleased to be sharing this book with you for the next 20 minutes, Isaac and the Red Jumper, written by Amanda Seyderhelm. And Amanda's here with us with her two amazing lampshades. Amanda, welcome. Tell us a little bit about you, about your background, about how you came, the sorts of stuff that you do, the wide range of things that you do. We've had a chat, a few weeks ago when I first met you, and it's incredible work that you're doing. And then sort of lead into this particular book and how this came to be written.
Well, hi Ian, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me into this amazing festival. So yes, I'm a certified play therapist, and I'm the founder of Helping Children Smile Again. And I work with families and schools, organizations, helping them talk to children, young children as young as 4 up to 18, about loss, about death, about grief, and how to open that conversation, how to start a conversation. Young children don't find it easy to talk about, as you well know. So play is a mechanism, is a medium for children to play out, literally, their feelings that they're struggling with. And the story of how Isaac came to be is one that I've not talked about publicly before, but said that I would share that story today, because it's like all stories. It has a personal origin. I was very ill in the early 2002. I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and I was facing my own death. I had a 30% chance of survival, and at that time the treatments were very basic for ovarian cancer. I was in a very stressful corporate publishing job and took time out, and it was around that time that I suppose, facing my own mortality, as I now know what it's like for a lot of people who do that, for me it activated this amazing sort of survival instinct. I didn't want to die. And it was around that time that I was dreaming very deeply. And I always say that actually I didn't create Isaac, he came to me, he found me. And he literally came in a dream. And I woke up one morning, and I'd at that time been writing all my dreams down beside my bed, which is something I encourage all my clients to do. And I woke up, and the story was literally in my head, fully formed. I wrote it down, went back to sleep, and put it in a drawer for several years and didn't think too much about it. And then when I retrained to be a therapist, I remembered Isaac, and I thought, how interesting that at the lowest point in my life, a new story had begun. And that's something I think that I see a lot with families and children, that when they are approaching a loss of any kind, it's the end of something, but it's also the beginning of something new. It's the start of something new. And it was like that for me. So it was a new chapter. So Isaac, in a way, is born out of, yes, great sadness, but also a tremendous sense of optimism of what's possible when you start that story making process, which is really what my work's all about. It's helping people to find those stories that they're struggling to tell. And in young children, a book like Isaac is a tool to help them find that story, to tell that story.
Thank you for that. I mean, that's a powerful story of your own. It's an interesting story in terms of the creative process. You know, that at one point, I remember once I was being told about the superconscious, that we all have access to sort of all this creativity, and we just have to let it sort of work its way through, and then ideas or stories or songs can sort of come to us fully formed, but they come at the point when they're needed, like Isaac came to you in that sort of way, and then you write it down. It's important because otherwise it'll go. And then also, I've always said books know when they're ready to be written. They know when they're ready to be read. You'll have books on your shelves, as we all do, where they might be there for years, and suddenly you pick it out and it's just the right book at just the right time, and you don't know how that happened. But also in terms of the writing process, that they know when they're ready to come out, to be published. And so, you know, clearly you're tapping into all of those sorts of things as well. And I think, when you face your own mortality, when you face death, it just strips everything else away. When I talk about love, death, and everything else is admin, everything gets stripped away. You just become open, I suppose, to what the universe is sending your way, without getting too deep about it. So thank you for sharing that. You said right at the beginning about, you know, from 4 to 18-year-olds, and that, you know, young children, you know, have trouble talking about it, but adults have trouble talking about death as well. Let's start with the children. No, let's start with adults. We can go back to the children, because that's what the book's about. How, in your experience, do you get adults, whether that's parents, remaining parents, surviving parents like myself, how do you get them talking about something that is still so taboo? We still use so many euphemisms. Oh, she's gone away, or he's gone to sleep. How do you open up those conversations about death with adults, Amanda?
Well, when people usually find me, they're at a point where they may have tried many other things, and they will always present with a very similar narrative, which is that they feel stuck. They feel they can't go any further. So that is a door for me. That's an opportunity to really introduce them to the creative tools. So I use the same tools that I do with children, and I use them with adults as well. It's just perhaps tweaked slightly, but it's an invitation to be the character, if you like, in their own story, and tell me that story. So I always start with, tell me what happened. I get the narrative out, we get that onto paper, and then really it's a case of building trust and reflection, lots and lots of reflection, so that they can understand where they are as the hero in their own story. Where are they? What are the obstacles? What are the challenges that they're facing? And what do they need in order to I won't say move forward, but to live? I mean, that's really, I suppose, the point I got to was it was about life. I didn't want it to be about death. I wanted it to be about living, and whatever that meant. So I always hold that for all my clients, is what is it that you want to live for? What is it that you feel you're not living for? And then we go from there. So it's a conversation, but it's a way, I suppose it's unlike a lot of other psychotherapists that do the talking, just the talking therapy. I use the creative tools with all the adult clients as well. It's very much about story. So
it's about storytelling, telling your own story, listening to other stories, and that tool, that storytelling tool, comes from play therapy. That's part of play therapy, is it?
Yes, it's part of what we call therapy. So the play therapy toolkit has a number of items in it, like drawing and painting and sound and music. And therapeutic storytelling is one of the tools in my play therapy kit. And it's therapeutic in nature because the person who's taking part becomes an active participant in the journey of the storytelling. So it's not passive as it might be when you're sitting alongside a child or you're reading a book yourself. You are the observer. In therapeutic storytelling, you are the participant. You become actively involved. So as the therapist, I will be engaging with you, asking those questions, reflecting back how you feel about, the various parts in the story. So it's quite different in that way. At the end of that, the adult will not be the same. They'll be changed. It's a way to process change.
There's a quote from D.H. Lawrence I've loved for years, which is, one sheds one sicknesses in books. The writing process, the creative process helps just get stuff that's there stuck out.
Yes.
And as soon as you're shifting it from that emotional part of your brain into an intellectual part of your brain that deals with words and with language and sentences and everything, which allows it to sort of come out.
Yeah.
It's out, I suppose. You can deal
I think that's what's partly fascinating about this process, is that I've had people who've said, come in and said, well, I'm not creative, I can't write a thing. Don't ask me to write anything, will you? But the minute they start writing and doing really, simple prompting exercises, they love it. And it's a journaling tool that they take with them out of the therapy room, and they continue. And that's what I call building the relationship with yourself, with your subconscious. That's how you start to activate all those messages that you may have been pushing down because you're sad or you're depressed or you're anxious, all those emotions that go with grieving. But actually writing is a tremendous way, as you well know, of accessing all that great stuff, all that tremendous pool of creativity.
Yeah. And so from adults to 4-year-olds then, so how are we getting 4-year-olds to understand death and explore death and talk about it?
Well, this is my very favorite age group. I say that because they're like little sponges, they're just fantastic. That age group, sort of the 4 to 8-year-olds, they believe something called magical thinking. So magical thinking is when you believe that you can bring back the person who has died. So it's the sort of what if, if only I'd done this, what if I hadn't done that, mommy or daddy would come back. So with magical thinking, it can be quite dangerous, really, because it can set up for the child this idea that the person isn't actually dead. So what I'm trying to do in that age group is help the child understand the concept of death, and what that it's permanent, that we use language, like dying and death, so that they understand that it isn't something that's reversible. And again, story through character, this time through metaphor. That age group can really only relate to death through the metaphorical. So that's how they would understand that death is actually permanent. It wouldn't be through talking directly about it. The way to open up, or the way I open up that conversation, is through the characters in a story.
And then the metaphor. So it comes across so powerfully in that. So tell us a little bit more about this. Maybe read us a little bit from that one, Amanda.
Yeah, sure. So Isaac is a story about a little boy called Isaac who loses his best friend quite suddenly, and he's shocked and really, I think, quite depressed in a way. Doesn't really know how to cope, doesn't have the language for coping, and is really stuck, which is something I see a lot. So I'm going to just read a few pages, and I thought maybe we could then, that would lead on to talking about those in the middle on page 12. And shall I hold up the
yeah, show us that. Yes, as if you're reading for a class. It's nice. Yeah.
Okay. So
you're running 2 books at the same time. That's impressive.
I am, and I've just realized I'm not on the right page. Sorry about that. Okay, so here we go. Nothing cheered Isaac up. His teeth started to chatter. He couldn't move his hands. He couldn't eat. No knitting for him. His whole world felt cold. Jenny, his friend, hoped for a miracle. She closed her eyes and folded her hands together and imagined Isaac's life being colourful again. Isaac and his friend used to knit little magic jumpers together. Okay. One day, Isaac was sitting on his window ledge, dozing with his eyes closed, when in his mind's eye, he saw Freddie, his friend, floating by holding an umbrella. Around him, Isaac could sense an orange glow. Isaac could feel the warmth from the orange glow. Isaac told Jenny what he had seen with his eyes closed, and they danced around the orange glow.
Tell us about the orange glow.
Well, the orange glow is the unknown. It's the energy, I suppose. You could call it what you like, the divine, the sacred, the intuitive. It's that part of ourselves that I call love never dies. It's the part that we connect to when we want to remember, I suppose, the person who's died. We can't bring them back, but we can build a continuing bond, a continuing connection with that person. So the orange glow represents that connection that Isaac eventually learns how to tap into. And by doing so, he finds a certain healing and peace, because he knows that his friend will always be in his heart. He won't be beside him, but he will always be as close as he wants him to be. And I wanted that to be in the book, to start that conversation around, this is a choice. At some point we make a choice to build a connection with the person who's died, who we've loved. And that is a journey in itself. You know, when you're first grieving, it's very hard to do that. But children learn how to do that. And actually, I think children learn how to do it more easily than adults. I think adults, we have a whole load of stuff in the way. You know, we can be well defended, we can not want to do that, whereas children are quite accepting of this idea. And I think if we can, it's why I'm passionate about doing it with this age group. If this age group learns how to do it, I think it's a real treasure that they take with them into adulthood, so that any other loss that they have, you know, and let's face it, they will continue to have losses. If they've learned how to do this, it's something that's just going to build resilience as they get older. So when the other losses start to occur, that part of their brain that will have actually been developed. And we know through play that that's exactly what happens. Neural pathways do become more elastic. And the more we can do this, I think it's going to be easier for them to process other losses. Their grief isn't going to feel quite as, you know, quite as stuck or quite as hard, quite as difficult.
No, I hadn't thought of it in that way. This idea that you're not only helping children through the current loss, you're preparing them for future losses, and also that, you know, children with access who read the book, the book read to them, who haven't experienced loss yet, but you're still preparing them with the tools, psychologically and neurologically, to be able to deal with the loss that will inevitably happen at some point. The time goes so quick.
I know.
How are people using it? What sort of stories are you hearing back about people using the book in either a clinical setting or in school or in families?
I think the main thing that people like about it is the idea that the jumper, the red jumper in the book, is the metaphor for representing grief. So when Isaac is really sad, the jumper turns grey. When he's feeling more optimistic and happy, it turns red again. That's something children can relate to. So in school settings and in clinic settings as well, that's a conversation opener. What colour is your jumper today is a way to take a temperature, a child's temperature of, well, how am I feeling today? You know, then you can actually start to work with the colour, with the texture. How big is it? How small is it? Does it feel like it fits? All those things are ways into a child's world. So, yeah, I think the metaphor is it's a doorway in.
When I read it as well, I could relate to my kids and this idea that I'm going to wear this one today, but I could take it off and put a different one on. If that's what I do. Yes,
exactly. It's a choice. It's always a choice. You're not ever stuck.
Yeah, no, I like that. So, I mean, we've done the deal with Roving Bookshop because you put me in contact with them, or connections via connections with John at Roving Bookshop. So, the website address for them, they've got their own special festival bookshop they've set up with, you can buy the books and get it signed and dedicated and the likes. How might people get hold of you then, Amanda, with your website or social media?
Yes, so my website is amandaseyderhelm.com. On Twitter, I'm at the Kid Decoder. That's KIDDECODER. I'm on Instagram as well at Amanda Saderhelm.
All right.
And,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you for that. Kids decoding is a whole other.
Yeah, it's a whole other conversation. Yeah.
Of the decoding of children. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
For the work that you're doing in this important area. And like I say, from my own experience, I can see how beneficial it is. And the more people we can have talking about that, the more we can help children at a time when they need it most.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much, and keep that up.
Thank you, Ian. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.